For today's exercise in perspective drawing, you'll need some 8.5 by 11 paper, a longer strip of paper, and this can be newspaper. This is a piece of a paper bag that I've cut out. It just needs to be longer than your 8.5 by 11 paper. I have a pencil, a ruler, and you could use a Sharpie marker. This is a Micron pen. So the first thing we're going to do is just use our 8.5 by 11 paper, and we're going to draw some cubes in 3D space. So I'm going to start by using my ruler and creating what we're going to think of as a horizon line. I'm going to draw dark with my pencil so that you can see what I'm doing, but you may want to draw lighter with your pencil. So this is the horizon line, and this is a vanishing point. We're going to start out with just 1 point perspective. So that means that the length and the width are not going to be drawn in perspective, but the depth dimension will be drawn in perspective. So I'm going to start with just a square, and this is going to be the front face of the cube that's going to appear to float in space. And this does not have to be perfect. This is just a drawing exercise to help you get used to the concept. Now that I've drawn a square, I'm going to connect each corner of the square to the vanishing point. And again, you may want to use lighter lines so that they're easier to erase, because we'll be erasing some of what we're drawing. So there's 3 of my corners, and here's my 4th corner connected to the vanishing point. Now if I want this to be a cube, I'm just going to make a line that is parallel to the line that makes up this side of my cube. And then I'm going to make a line that is parallel to the bottom of my cube. And that's going to chop it off in space. And then I can erase all these other lines. That are not actually part of my cube. Now, if you imagine that this is a transparent cube, like a cube of ice, then you might be able to see the inner parts of the cube. But I'm imagining that my cube is not see-through. Maybe it's a box. The cube appears to take up space, but we can make that effect even stronger by imagining a light source. And if the light is shining from that direction, then the bottom of the cube is going to be dark because it's going to be in shadow. So I can shade that in. And if the light's coming from over here, then this face of the cube is going to be a medium value. And this will be the lightest face of the cube. So just that little variation in value creates the illusion that the cube takes up space. Now let's draw another cube, maybe to the right of the vanishing point, and maybe a little lower down on the page. So I'm just making a square. And again, I'm not taking time to measure precisely, or I'm just eyeballing it. And now that I've drawn my cube, I'm going to connect all the corners to the vanishing point, still using the same vanishing point. And if I wanted to pretend it was a see-through cube, I would want to make sure I could see all the parts, and this line almost concurs with this line. Sometimes that happens. It's a special case. Now I'm gonna make this one longer, like it's a long hallway. So I'm going to make a straight up and down line and a straight across line to chop it off. And now the light source is up here, so the bottom of my cube is going to be the darkest. And then probably this side is going to be a little bit darker than this front edge. And I don't want my cube to be see-through again, so I'm going to erase all the extraneous lines. Now I have 2 cubes floating in space. We'll do one more. Maybe this time we'll do one below the horizon line. Not being exact. Now each of the corners is going to connect with the vanishing point. And this one, I could make it cube shaped if I chopped it off here. I could make it long like a train or a long hallway or a long building if I chopped it off here. But I think this time I'm going to make it more like a cereal box, and I'm going to chop it off really close and make it shallow just for some variety. I'm going to erase all my extraneous lines because I'm imagining that this is not a see-through box, it's an opaque box. And the light source is way up here, so the shadow this time is going to be over here. And probably more light will shine on the top than the side, but not much more. And we could take it further and we could draw cast shadows. But I just wanted to introduce you to the idea of drawing a 3-dimensional cube in space. The height dimension is parallel to the sides of the page. The width dimension is parallel to the top and bottom of the page. But the depth dimension is created using the vanishing point. So you see that these lines are not parallel to each other. They lead in to the vanishing point in each of these cases. For the next exercise, we'll be using 2-point perspective and drawing a birdhouse. We'll use the strip of paper that we cut, and I'm going to position my drawing paper portrait style. I'm going to place my strip of paper that I cut lower than halfway down the page, and I'm going to tape my paper and that strip to the table so that it doesn't move around. Because we're going to put some effort into this and we don't want our hard work to be wasted because our paper moves. Now we're going to use a ruler and create a horizon line that stretches across that piece of paper that we cut and laid behind our drawing paper. I'm imagining that my birdhouse is going to be in a tree, so I want the horizon line to be low on the page so that I can imagine looking up at the birdhouse. Now I'm going to make 2 vanishing points. One on the right side and one on the left side. To make a cube in 2-point perspective, we're going to start with the edge that is closest to us. So this time we're going to have the height perspective held constant, and then we'll have the depth perspective leading to the left vanishing point, and the width perspective leading to the right vanishing point. Now I'm going to connect the top and bottom to that front edge to the right vanishing point that represents width. And I'll connect the top and bottom of that front edge to the left vanishing point to represent the depth of the birdhouse. Now I want to decide how wide I want the front of my birdhouse to be. I think about that wide. That way I have plenty of room for a little door and a perch. And maybe I want to draw a little porch for my birds. So I'm going to chop it off here. I could go ahead and start erasing some of the lines that I won't need. And now, how deep do I want my birdhouse to be? I don't want it to be super deep, but I don't want it too shallow either. So I think I want it to be about this deep. And again, I could start erasing some of these extraneous lines. I'll go ahead and create the bottom of my birdhouse, and I'll do that by connecting this corner with the right vanishing point, and see how that's going to represent how the width of the birdhouse. And then the depth of the birdhouse is going to be represented by connecting this bottom front corner with the left vanishing point. And as we move forward, the bottom can be shaded to create a little more of a 3D illusion. Now I'm imagining that I'm going to have a little door in the front of my birdhouse where the birds can hop in and out. And I want to have a peaked roof. So I'm going to draw an X on the front of my birdhouse, on the front face, that connects the top left to the bottom right, the bottom left to the top right. And the center of that X is going to be the center of the front of the birdhouse. So the center of the roof is going to go straight up from that. And I need to decide how tall I want it to be. If I want it to reach way up like a church, then I could make it super tall. I could make it really short. I want mine to be somewhere in the middle, so I think I'm going to have it come to about here. So I'm just going to connect the corners to that top. So here is the depth of my birdhouse. And the top of the roof is also going to have a depth, so I'm going to connect it to the left vanishing point that represents depth. The way that it's drawn, it appears that the roof starts flush with the front edge of the birdhouse. But I don't want my little birds to get wet when it rains. So I'm going to extend my roof out over the front face of the birdhouse. And I'm doing that by extending the depth lines and then making another line parallel to that top edge. And I'm also going to make a line that's parallel to this side, and I'm just eyeballing it, but I want it roughly parallel. And then this corner is going to connect to that depth vanishing point, because there again is the depth dimension being represented. Now I can go ahead and erase some of these lines that were there earlier. And the back of the roof doesn't need to go on forever, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a line parallel to this line that chops it off in space. I'm making sure that the center guides me as I make my little door. And I could make a little porch. We'll do that by extending the floor just a little bit, like we did with the roof. So the depth dimension is extended. I think I want my porch to be a little wider, a little deeper. Okay, and then the width of the porch again is represented, and I'm going to connect those front the lines I don't need. Shadow under there to create the illusion of depth. Now usually, if I was building a birdhouse, I would be nailing a board to the bottom of the birdhouse, and it would have a thickness. It would have some thickness. So I'm just gonna create some thickness, and always the depth dimension connects to the left vanishing point, the width dimension to the right vanishing point. And the same with the front edge of the roof. That edge is going to have some dimension. And when I nailed the sides onto the birdhouse, I imagine that they had a thickness. I'll just point out that all the straight up and down lines are parallel to each other because we did not do a third vanishing point. If we wanted to draw in 3-point perspective, we could have another vanishing point up here or down here, and that would represent the height dimension. But we're keeping the height dimension constant for simplicity, and also because that's the way that I use perspective in a landscape painting. Now I imagine that my birdhouse is mounted on a tree. And in my imagination, that tree looks about like that. Maybe there's a second tree growing close by. Maybe there are some leaves, fall leaves, or pine needles. And some wood grain texture. Maybe the top of the birdhouse has a roof that is slatted. And of course I'm going to have all kinds of shadows. If the light comes from overhead, it's going to be shaded under the eaves of the roof, and it's going to shade a little bit on the sides of the birdhouse. I might imagine some little nail holes. Some shadow under the birdhouse. Now I'm going to use my Micron pens, or you could use a Sharpie marker, and I'm going to create some texture and some finishing touches on my birdhouse. And just have a little fun. You may use 2-point perspective in your landscape painting if there is a barn or some other structure in your reference photograph.